So, welcome everybody to our weekly Zoom series, Finding God in All Things. This week I'm going to talk about finding God in nature. So, let me, finding God in nature. And I thought this was an appropriate picture just because to me, landscape represents nature. You get the water, you get the trees, the mountains, the sky. I thought it was a good opening picture. So the question that I want to pose to everybody is, that's something that is obviously beautiful. They're luminescent waves caused by, I believe it's bacteria, microorganisms in the water that when they're moved around like that, they fluoresce. And to me, it looks like something that is completely out of this world. It almost seems unreal, but it's very real. There's videos of it all over YouTube. And to me, that speaks, like what kind of detail, attention to detail, um, God put into His creation, into um, building the world for us to live and enjoy. Um, he created the peace and the quiet, the forest. If you've ever had the privilege of walking around in the wooded forest, it's quiet and you can hear the birds and the different animals walking around. Um, be exciting. I know the picture on the right seems kind of spooky, but I mean, for me, it would be kind of exciting because I don't know, it's a sense of adventure. Um, the purple flowers are, just they make me kind of like want to give off light and joy and laughter. Um, so these things call something out from within us. They call us to share, they call us to be moved. He created the colorful. I don't know what any of these flowers are, I just know that they're pretty and colorful. Um, but, very vibrant colors that just catch our eye. And a lot of times, we are so busy doing other things that we forget to stop and appreciate all of the small details. Um, I mean that the pink one looks like, I don't know, I guess kind of like a loofah. I don't, I just it looks like it feels spongy. Um, but the amount of detail that was put into designing these living organisms, these things for us to enjoy. Uh, Another little side note, the one on the top looks like it follows the spiral of the Fibonacci sequence. And if you've never heard of that, it's a mathematic phenomenon that um, Fibonacci discovered. And um, when you graph these numbers and you put a curve to it, it's a very specific spiral, and that very same spiral is seen throughout all of creation, flowers to different shells, even the shape of the human ear. Um, it's everywhere. It's even down to the the angle of the spiral of galaxies and the stars over our heads. Um, so they are venturing to say that Fibonacci spiral is God's fingerprint, just the same way that we are all unique. Um, it points to a single creator. It points to everything coming from a single designer, which I think is really cool. Um, but he also created the simple. A lot of things that we take for granted, just, the simple breeze or little flowers in the grass. I know that in my yard there's a specific pink flower that grows, and it's just very simple. It has 5 petals, and they're very thin and flimsy, and they just kind of form this little bowl. Um, and they look very delicate, and they grow in little patches around the yard. And whenever they pop up, we try and like mow the grass around them just to keep the flowers intact and keep them there. Um, but everything that God created, He created with purpose, with intention. The cute. I know some of you probably wouldn't put this little snake as cute, but to me, he's cute. Um, I don't know. It's you look at them and you can't help but smile. The little pufferfish is smiling at you. Little hedgehog with a crown. Um, these are things that we gravitate towards. I mean, you look all over social media and somebody puts up a picture or video of a little kitten or a baby, anything in all reality, like anything that is an infant that goes on social media is immediately viral. Um, but why is that? That's because it's beautiful and it calls out to us. There is a flip side. Um, I put awesome in the sense of like awe-inspiring and creating a sense of wonder. Um, I didn't even know that this fish existed. It's called the crown, no, king crown tail beta, which I saw it and I was like, that is just really cool. Um, but look at these vibrant colors. Look at, all the different patterns and stuff. Um, those are things to me that just really inspire me to be like, wow, look at that attention to detail. Look at all the effort put into those things. Following that is, storms, and I've mentioned before in previous videos that I am absolutely in love with thunderstorms and uh, these kind of clouds. I'll share a quick story. There was a storm that was approaching uh, the San Antonio area, and I was outside putting things away and getting things ready for rain. And I looked up at the sky, and something pretty similar to this bottom picture right here is what I saw. It looked like a wall of clouds. It was just, on one side of the sky was completely crystal clear, and on the other side was this storm cloud, this huge storm cloud that you couldn't. It was so big that you really didn't see like a curve. It was just straight like a curtain coming over. And for whatever reason, the first thing that popped into my mind was the way the storm comes. Like if I had taken a picture of that, that's what I would have titled it. Um, but I don't know, like it was something that you have to just stop and stare at because it's so inspiring. Um, it's just so wonderful, but also dangerous at the same time. Um, and even as far as the galaxies, um, these are pictures that were taken um, probably by Hubble. Um, but so intricate and so detailed, and it calls to mind. I was listening to a talk that they were talking about creation versus uh, the universe being created by chance, and essentially like everything that they have measured about our world has been measured down to like I think it's the 23rd decimal place, which is ridiculously small. Um, and they've run simulations and done they've done different tests on these things, and they found that if any of those um, forces or anything around us, the distance from the earth to the sun, the magnitude of gravity, like all of those things that make the earth and make where we live what it is and what we know, if any of those things were off by one decimal point, even 23 decimal points away. If that last number was changed just by one, then the world, the universe as we know it would cease to exist because everything is just that perfect. The balance is that precise that, you know, a little bit less and we probably would have caved into a black hole, and a little bit more, we would have been stretched out into infinity. Um, but it's crazy to think about those things because we wake up and we take them for granted, and it's like, oh yeah, like I know that the sun's gonna rise, and well, the sun doesn't rise, we go around the sun, but you know, you're gonna wake up and you're gonna see the sunrise and you're gonna see the sunset, and depending on, you know, where in the month you fall, you're gonna see the moon come up, you're gonna see the moon go down, and those are, you know, things that we see as certainties, and there's a reason for that. You know, God gave us those certainties and He designed it that way so that, you know, we can enjoy it, and we can um, draw beauty from it, but also let let that beauty be reflected within us to those around us. Just some more galaxy pictures. I think this one's really cool. This looks like something out of like Star Trek. It looks like a wormhole or when they go light speed. Um, but you know, just to go back, this is a star inside this galaxy. This is a red giant, and I don't know, just looking at it, just you can't help but, well, I can't help but just think, wow, like how how crazy it must be. And I just, my dream would be to go out there and just touch it and go touch the puffy cloud. Um, but it's just it's so awe-inspiring, and it always, for me, it always just reminds me of how big and how grand God is. But in turn, that turns me back towards, you know, the detail that He created us with. Because if He was so awesome in creating something like this, yet at the same time, He created something so little and cute and precious and dainty as this flower, you know, how much does that say about God's attention to detail for everything in between? And it says in the Bible, you know, the grass doesn't worry about when it's going to live and die, and the birds don't worry about what they're going to get their food from. So how much more will God our Father take care of us, who are of much more value? Um, so, you know, those are things that all of these things remind me of, because we are God's creation. All of this falls into God's creation, and He holds us in, you know, we are His highest creation. Well, maybe, I don't know. I don't want to be theologically wrong. Um, I'm sure the angels and heaven is all of that above us, but with regards to everything that He created um, on the earth and our universe, you know, he put the most attention to detail to us. He gave us, you know, life. He gave us a consciousness. He gave us a soul. He wanted us to participate in this relationship with Him, and you know, we, unlike the animals that we walk around with, we can appreciate beauty. We can appreciate, you know, everything that God has done, and I think that, you know, that's a huge blessing for us to be able to see God in His creation. And I think it's good for us to be reminded every once in a while that, you know, God is, He's our creator, and He is calling us to be in relationship with Him. And you know, He created each and every one of us with intentionality and with purpose, and it was not an accident. None of us were accidents, and everything was by design, and everything was according to His plan, the way He wanted it to fall. Um, so you know, things like this always take me back to thinking about that. Mm, So with that, I'm going to do a little discussion. Um, I want to pick on people to answer. So, Stephen, would you mind answering the first one? Where do you find God's beauty?
right in the sunrise, or when I see the sun come up on a sunny day, that's beautiful. That tells me it's going to be a good day, and I don't have to uh, worry. Uh, I know everything's in good hands.
Let me see. Leanne, could you go ahead and answer the second one? How does God speak to you through nature?
Um, yeah, God, I feel like God does speak to me through nature because I do love going outside, and I love sunrises and sunsets, and like just waking up early to watch either the sunrise, or if not, then like just going outside when the sun is going down. Because I don't know, I just think that's like so beautiful. And then just watching just like all of nature all combined in the animals. So I don't know. I just feel like when I look at the sky, like it just I see it as God's painting it every day, and so I guess that's how He speaks to me through the
Yeah,
nature.
that's really nice. Thank you. And Nicole, could you answer the last one? How do you like to enjoy nature?
Okay, so I really love like water, and so I love the ocean and the river and lakes, and even like swimming, even though it's just like a sitting body of water that's man-made. It's so crazy like that you can like move through it, and it's also, the same substance that like nourishes your body. Like we need water to live, and like other creatures actually depend on it. And when you're swimming, like the way that your weight kind of shifts to where like you feel way lighter, and like you can carry people that you wouldn't be able to normally carry people outside the water. Like it's just, I don't know, I love the water. And then in the rain and waterfalls, the sounds that it makes, the way that it flows, I love water.
Nice. That's good. Thank you. Thank you all for sharing. Um, yeah, I agree. All of those answers: the sunset, the sunrise, water. God speaks to us through all of it, and our responsibility, what we have to do, is open our eyes and open our hearts and ask Him to speak through us. And it's funny because I was watching a movie last night called The Mighty Max, and it's based on a true story. It's a basketball story, but there's a nun and she goes into the chapel and she's praying to God and she's asking Him, "Show me a sign. I'm here to listen to your voice." And when she finishes that, the whistle blows of the girls, like in practice, and she turns around and she looks all upset and she's like, "How dare you distract my prayer?" And then so she looks back at the altar and she's like intently like, "Lord, I'm waiting and I'm listening," and the whistle goes off again. And she's like, "Are you serious?" So then she turns back and she's like, "Lord, I'm here to listen to you." And then so finally the whistle goes off again. And so she just gets up and she walks over. Um, and it reminds me of like how many times do we ask God to speak to us, and um, he put something in our path and we're just like, "No, that's not God, I'm waiting for something else," or "No, that's not it, I should be, it's something around this area." And that kind of reminds me of that verse where Elijah was in the cave and he was waiting for God, and it says, God was not found in the mighty roar of the wind, or um, in the shake of the earth. God was found in the whisper of the silence. um, and that's another thing that I came across too, is like nature speaks silently to us about God. And I think that's very profound, and it's just beautiful because all you have to do is just be present to nature and let God speak through you, because um, all of his creation is speaking about him and singing to him. And there's a lot of Christian songs that take advantage of that idea, and they say, let all creation sing your praise. um, and I think there's actually a song where they like recorded different animals and like the sound of the ocean, and they put it together, and I think they compiled it, and it essentially is singing the song "How Great Is Our God," which I think is mind-blowing because it's so true. Like that's what creation was intended to do. That's what we are intended to do. We are intended to praise God. So when we notice nature, notice God's creation, giving him praise, that's, to me, that's just a whole nother level of, appreciation for what God is doing for us. So with that, I want to share a video from Bishop Barron, and he's going to talk a little bit about nature and God and how they go together. I trimmed out the intro because he spends a few minutes. I'm trying to make it shorter for you guys. But he's talking about these commercials that have been put out, and different celebrities are portraying different like forces of nature. And so what he's talking about is like nature is portrayed as unpredictable and indifferent towards us. And so one of the quotes is, "I don't need you, but you need me. I can take you or leave you. I was here 25 million years before you were," that kind of thing. So knowing that, let's go into the video.
I remember the first time the radical indifference of nature really struck me. It's many years ago. I was giving a retreat to seminarians on the North Carolina coast. And during one of the breaks, I actually went out into the surf, like just up to my knees maybe. And I'm looking out at the beautiful scene, the water, and then there were dolphins swimming and all this. And I was just exulting in how beautiful it was. And then I turned for a moment to look back towards shore. And just like that, this giant wave came up, and it hit me from behind, and it knocked me actually to the floor of the sea. And for a few very disturbing moments, it actually kind of pinned me to the ground. And it was all over in a couple seconds, and I'm back up on my feet. But I remember thinking, wow, the nature, the same nature that so beguiled me with its beauty one moment, the next moment almost killed me. And so, my flowing streams, my mountains, they could take you or they could leave you. That's absolutely right. That's the way nature is. And you know who knew this very well? The ancient people with their gods and goddesses. You look in the mythology of the Norse people, the Greeks, the Romans, and so on, Babylonians. The gods and goddesses are personifications of the natural necessities. So whether it's, Poseidon symbolizing the sea. Well, Poseidon, one moment smiles on you, the next moment he'll sink your ship. Zeus symbolizes the sky, the atmosphere. One moment it's beautiful and serene. Next minute, a thunderbolt will come and kill you. Demeter maybe stands for the earth, and it's rich and provides you food. The next minute it becomes an avenging enemy. Well, they knew that, and we read those stories, which is why the worship of the ancient gods and goddesses was a very dicey business, because you were always dealing with what's finally a capricious and unpredictable and finally indifferent reality. Now, here's the thing, and why I say this is of theological significance. The Bible represents something altogether new and different. Go back to the very opening verses of the book of Genesis. As God, the Creator, brings forth earth and sea and planets and stars and everything. Well, every one of those elements, at one time in the ancient world, in some culture, was worshipped as divine. Think of people that worship the sun and the moon, they worship the earth, they worship the sea. All these natural necessities are coming forth, but mind you, coming forth from the Creator God, which means in the very act of creation, God is dethroning them. He's saying they're not divine. These things are impressive, they're beautiful, God calls them good, fine, but they're not divine. They're not there to be worshipped, they're there to be recognized as part of God's creation. Furthermore, the Creator God is not like the ancient gods and goddesses, because he's not like the natural necessities. The Creator God is rock-like in his fidelity, in his steadfast love. Could a mother forget her child? Even if she forgets, I will never forget you. I've carved you in the palm of my hand. All this biblical revelation coming to its climax in the claim that God is love. Now see, notice, we're not dealing with Zeus, Poseidon, and Demeter. We're not dealing with the natural necessities, which are impressive but dangerous. We're dealing with the finally reliable God, the God of love. And that makes all the difference. This positioning of the classical gods. Look at St. Augustine in his Confessions, a great passage where Augustine imagines all of the natural elements coming before him, all the things that were essentially worshipped in the ancient world. And they all say to him, look higher, look higher, look higher. In other words, don't look to us as your God. We're not your ultimate concern. Look higher. And then together in a great chorus, they say, he made us. There's biblical religion. It's the creator God, not the natural necessities, that are the proper focus of our worship.
So if that hopefully kind of starts to tie things in, like I had mentioned before, creation all has a purpose, and its purpose is to reflect God and to turn us and other people towards God. I really like the way St. Augustine put it, where the elements are telling him to look higher. And I think that we did a presentation a while back, and it said, "Why wish upon a star when you can pray to the one who created them?" And the idea was, we look up at the stars and we think how magnificent and how wonderful, but why do we stop there? And so it's that whole idea of going beyond and going further. And there's a particular idea or concept of attention to detail that causes you or allows you to look deeper into the meaning of something. So, passing by the little flower, then you're like, oh yeah, it's a flower, and you keep going about your day. But if you take the flower and you start to study it and look at it and appreciate its beauty and look at all the small little details, then you start to think, well, how did this come to be? How is it that this little flower survives, on this little crack between the concrete, or wherever it is that you found it? Like, what is it about this flower that makes it so beautiful? Because you appreciate the beauty, so you start to question, how did it get to be so beautiful? And it's the same thing with everything else. So everything has a purpose, and that asking of why, that questioning, leads you towards contemplation, which contemplation is the highest form of prayer, and it's something that I think helps us grow significantly. I know for me, some of the biggest revelations to my heart, and that God has given me to my life, and things that I was looking at and for, have come through contemplation. And last year, my quote, uh, I would say the theme for my life was, "Be still and know that I am God." And I had it as the lock screen on my phone, and every time I looked at my phone, it was a reminder for me to be still and just be silent and wait for God to speak. Let God speak. Um, and even now, in adoration, that's the biggest thing that I do is, I'll say a quick little prayer in the beginning, but the rest of adoration is me just being still and being present. Um, and that's what nature is calling us to do. So I want to run through this really quick. It's called the Canticle. I've seen different names. Some say the Canticle of the Creatures, others says Canticle of St. Francis. There was one that said Canticle of the Sun. But I think it's all the same prayer. But I like it because it, kind of like what Bishop Barron was going off of, it recognizes the impressiveness of nature and the things around us, but in turn, it shows that God created that specific thing for a purpose, for a reason. So I'll go ahead and read it. Most high, all powerful, all good Lord, All praise is yours, all glory, all honor, and all blessings. To you alone, Most High, do they belong, and no mortal lips are worthy to pronounce your name. Praised be you, my Lord, with all your creatures, especially Sir Brother Sun, who is the day through whom you give us light, and he is beautiful and radiant, with great splendor of you, Most High, he bears the likeness. Praised be you, my Lord, through Sister Moon and the stars in the heavens. You have made them bright, precious, and fair. Praised be you, my Lord, through brothers wind and air, fair and stormy, all weathers moods, by which you cherish all that you have made. Praised be you, my Lord, through Sister Water, so useful, humble, precious, and pure. Praised be you, my Lord, through Brother Fire, through whom you light the night, and he is beautiful and playful and robust and strong. Praised be you, my Lord, through our sister, Mother Earth, who sustains and governs us, producing varied fruits with colored flowers and herbs. Praise be you, my Lord, through those who grant pardon for love of you and bear sickness and trial. Blessed are those who endure in peace. By you, Most High, they will be crowned. Praised be you, my Lord, through Sister Death, from whom no one living can escape. Woe to those who die in mortal sin. Blessed are they she finds doing your will. No second death can do them harm. Praise and bless my Lord, and give him thanks, and serve him with great humility. And again, like I just think that it's so beautiful, and it forces you to, meditate and to contemplate these things, and even something that a lot of people have a hard time with, and we struggle with the idea of death and departure. um, but even in this prayer that St. Francis wrote, death has a purpose, and I don't know, like it's something that we we see, and we have to see beyond just the finite. And one of my old parish priests used to say, death is a window. You close your eyes, it's a blink of an eye. You close your eyes and you open them, and you're in the presence of God. And I don't know, it's something that um, I think a lot of us, myself included, you know, can spend more time, seeing or trying to see God's purpose in it. Um, I really enjoyed the part about Brother Fire, because it, described it as beautiful and playful, um, yet robust and strong. And it's, kind of, um, I enjoy fire. I like sitting by the campfire. I know Father Brian does too. Um, but to me, it's another one of those things that it's just, you look at it, and it's beautiful, and it causes you to, you know, drift off into thinking about life, and where you are, and what God has spoken to you. A little more discussion time. So, first question: when was the time that God spoke to you through beauty in creation? And I'm actually, Father Brian, would you mind answering that question for us?
Okay, you give me the tough one. All right, I got it. It's all good. There was a time that God spoke to you through beauty and creation. So, in my old place, it so happens that there was a lot of trees around, and we had like every animal under the sun. It was like its own little jungle. Like I learned Animal Planet just like from my backyard. It had so many different. I didn't have to have the Animal Planet. I just looked at the backyard. So my dog saw it too, and so we were both entertained by so much stuff going on. But we had a lot of birds, and you know, in the morning they would tweet very, very, very loud, which was annoying. Because they can start at 4 or 5 in the morning and just won't shut up. And so, you know, before coffee, that's never a good thing. But from time to time, there would be cardinals. We would have a red bird, we would have a blue bird. They would be flying all over. And usually, I think what I understand is cardinals are meant as like a message, right? They usually send a message, or they mean something's going to happen good, or God, or someone wants to send you a message. And I always looked at it as whenever I would see it or whatever, they would be on a tree branch next to me or next to the door, I would be asking, okay, God, well, what do you have in store for me today? I don't know if, you know, that was God, but I would like to think it is. I would like to think that in that sense, you know, nature at that particular point, you know, was speaking to me in that way, just giving a message, or even just, even though those birds were chirping noisily in the morning, they also chirped when it was good weather. If it was bad weather or something like that, they'd be all quiet. Then when the rain would subside, or when the storms would go away, or when there was like really no imminent danger, you would hear them chirping. And so between that and also deer, the deer that I saw, now they're just so peaceful and chill, and how they just walk and they eat. And you know, one of the best relationships I saw was a mother and, you know, her child, that interaction, and how, and I think that's another way of how God spoke to me through nature, is that nurturing aspect of it. It was just beautiful. Hope that answered it.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely did. Thank you. Delia, when was the time that God spoke to you through creation?
I don't know if I necessarily have a specific time, but I think I feel him a lot in the wind. It's just, I like how it can either be like a forceful reminder or just a very gentle reminder, and it's like a constant presence, especially out here in Texas. But it's just, that's where I find him most, where I think I hear him most, because I struggle a lot with feeling his presence, and so that's just a really nice like physical reminder. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. That's awesome. Maddie, are you free to answer the question?
Which question? The first one?
Yeah.
Honestly, I see God's creation like all around. Like I don't have to like step outside. I kind of just see it like in my sister. Like I see I don't know, just like the people around me. I see like that's who God loves, that's who God created. And there's so many beauty in like God God is a natural like creator, a beautiful creator. He creates everything beautiful. So like I don't know, I think it's I think for me it's just in the little things. I'm not sure like through nature because but I don't know, maybe for me it's like people just seeing like I don't know, like this is who God loves, who God created.
Yeah. No, that makes
Yeah.
sense, because we still fall into that category of his creation.
Yeah, I mean like God created everything that you like see. I mean, I don't know, except like houses, you know, I don't know if he creates houses, but yeah, for me that's what I would say.
Awesome. Thank you. So Leslie, I saw that you said you could answer. When was the time that God spoke to you through creation?
For me, it would be, I think my second semester of my first year in college. I was working during the day, so I had to take all my classes during the evening. And for me, I live on campus, so I would have to like get super close to walk from my dorm to the class. So it was like one day I had a really tough class. It was just not the class in general, it was just that day, that lecture. It was one for my major courses, so I was kind of struggling to understand what she had explained that day. And that class would end at 9:45. It was a 3-hour lecture. So that day I came out of class, and I would usually take the same route back to my dorm, and I would just think about like my day through that walk, right? But this time, the campus, I go to Texas A&M San Antonio, and it's very small. It's pretty brand new too. So I took a different route this time because I was so bored and I just didn't want to get to my dorm. And I went through the back, and there's like this trail there at school. And as I was like walking through it and just my thoughts and thinking of what I can do better to not feel the way I was feeling that day, that night, I was definitely, I wouldn't say like God was present, like I'm not gonna lie and say I felt it, but I did feel so calmed, and I felt like I had so much peace after I got to my dorm after that walk. I wouldn't say it was the surrounding. It was so quiet. It was very pretty, like chilly, not cold, but it was not hot either. So I definitely felt like he was listening, or like he saw the day that I had, and he saw the way I felt towards the end. And it brought so much peace to me. I finally got to my dorm, and it was like I just took a deep breath and finished my day off with whatever I had to do that day. And ever since, every time I felt like that, every time I had a day like that, I take that path, that little route back to my dorm, and it seems like it helps. I wouldn't think like it's God. He's definitely, the way he created that little path, it just seems perfect to me.
That's pretty cool though. Like you get to walk that path and you have that feeling of like, God specifically, like he knows that this is gonna make me feel better.
Yeah, like that's the thing, like it specifically makes me feel better. So it's the fact that he knew, like he knows. But yeah, it's really great.
Nice. Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
So, sister, can you think of a time that God spoke to you through creation?
Sure, I can think of lots of times. Let me pick one. I think many times for me, rainbows are significant. In the Old Testament, of course, it's Noah has the promise of the rainbow at the end of the flood. But for me, it's always been a reminder of like God's love and God's covenant. And there's been many different times in my life where I feel like I've been through a storm or things aren't going well. And it seems at those moments that God puts rainbows in my life. And so it's probably like 12 years ago already now. A close friend had passed away, and there were other changes and transitions going on in my life. And I just remember at that point in time, I was kind of upset with God, and I was saying, what are you doing? And why is all of this happening? And I had just I had been in the chapel in the afternoon, and I was just kind of pouring out my heart. And I went outside to go check the mail, and I didn't even realize that it had been raining a little bit. And I looked up in the sky and there was a beautiful double rainbow. And I was like, okay, God, I know that you're there. And I know that you're with me through this. So it usually seems to me that in moments of great struggle, God sends something to remind me. And in that moment, it was a double rainbow that was like, I'm here and I'm going to see you through this. Just be patient and walk with me. Trust me.
That's beautiful. Thank you. My grandfather passed away in 2006, and my mom likes to go to mass. We attend daily mass on his birthday and on his death anniversary. And this was a couple of years ago. She was really still struggling with his passing, and so we went to mass, and she had been crying throughout the mass. And she said that during communion, she was just praying. She wanted comfort. She wanted to know that her dad was okay, and she was just begging God to, speak to her heart. And outside, she heard a blue jay, and so she looked out the window, and there was a blue jay on the branch, and he sang a couple of notes, and then he took off. And the reason that's significant is because when my grandpa was alive, he had a pet blue jay in the house, and so that was like specific to him. That was his like his little signature. So yeah, I definitely do believe that when we ask, God sends us a sign, whether it's cardinals, rainbows, blue jays, sunrise, sunset. I think it's really beautiful the way God speaks to us through all of it. I saw that Giovanni jumped in. Do you want to take a crack at the question, or?
Yeah, I can. Sorry I'm late. But
No, you're good.
I guess when I was, I guess last month actually. So something about me is I hate kids. Like kids, I don't deal with kids. I hate kids. And my older sister is in the army. She has kids. And the husband's in the Navy. So they were both shipped out. I was taking care of the kids. And then I was teaching them Spanish. And so when their parents came back home, they started speaking to them in Spanish. I don't know. I guess my older sister thought that was like so beautiful that like I was teaching them all this, and I guess like I don't know where like the kids would always do drawings, like try to spell out the words and like these drawings, and then like sometimes there would be like a T on the corner, but then we realized later, well, at least I did that. Like they got that from me because they know I'm religious and I carry a cross, so it's like at least they know, like they're kind of knowing who he is and putting that in his life.
Yeah.
And they all did that like when they came home from overseas. So it's like, I guess that's my beauty creation.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, thank you, everybody. So this next question, I won't call on anybody just because I feel like it's very much on the spot question. But please feel free to take this with you to adoration. Just think about it, hold it in your heart. The way that this question was posed to me, I don't think I worded it as well. But what does the landscape of your soul look like? And the way it was described is like, we look around and we see the surrounding beauty. And that was the original title for this talk, is Surrounded by Beauty. And so the final question was, what does the landscape of your soul look like? We all go through different seasons in life, and God has all of us in different journeys. And so, where do we find ourselves? Are we in the East Texas desert with cactus and tumbleweed? Or are we in the Amazon, full of rains and greenery all around us? Are we out in the hill country? So I would invite you to examine where you are, and just kind of, put a picture to what you're feeling, where your heart is. Um, and don't be afraid to be honest with yourself and with Jesus. um, but I think every landscape is beautiful, and I think that's also another thing to take away is no matter where you are, each landscape is beautiful in its own way, and each landscape serves its own purpose, the same way that each season in our life serves its own purpose. So yeah, I think, oh yeah, so that's all I have, and it wouldn't be my specific presentation. It wouldn't have my thumbprint if I didn't put a meme on it. So this is my closing meme. There were a few others that I found, but I liked this one the best. So for your meme enjoyment,